Now we're going to take a look at what happens when you take a variable first and then multiply by a constant, and how to simplify that or make that shorter. So let's say we have the variable x or y or a, b, c or whatever, times a constant, say 10 or 7 or pi or e. Actually, all you have to do is switch them, okay? And we can do that. Why? Because the order in which you multiply two numbers doesn't matter. That's called the commutative property of multiplication. Switch them, and then, again, like we did last time, ignore the multiplication sign and just bring them together. So therefore, x times c is equal to cx. Let's take a look at some examples. And we're going to do a two-step process in this lesson. Simplify, make short, x times 7. And let's go ahead and look at these steps. Well, the first thing we're going to do is switch these. So we're going to put the number out front, or the constant out front. So now we have 7 times x. And then next we're just going to remove the multiplication sign, because 7 times x is, or 7x is the same as 7 times x. So therefore, the answer to our original question is 7x. So again, put the number out front and remove the multiplication sign, because when you have a number and then a variable, that means multiply. No space in between, obviously. Okay, simplify, make shorter, y times e. Now let me ask you guys this. Which one's the variable and which one's the number? Actually, first, which one's the variable? Okay, if you said y, you are correct, so the variable comes first. Why is e not a variable? Because it's a predetermined, defined number that's equal to something that's constant, that doesn't change. It does go on forever, but it doesn't change. You can't make it 3 or 4 or 5. Mathematicians use e as a specific number. So the variable comes first, y, and then the constant. So we're going to follow these steps like we did last time. We're going to move the constant up front, so it's going to become e times y, and then we're just going to write it as ey. Remove the multiplication sign. And therefore the answer to our original question was ey. Looks a little weird, right? But y times e is the same as ey. And you want to put the constant first. I'm loving this. Alright. Next, r times pi. Let me ask you guys again, which one's the variable and which one's the constant? Yep, the variable comes first. R could be anything, and a lot of times it means radius, and of course you can have a circle of any radius, therefore it's a variable. And pi is a constant, 3.14 ... forever. So what we need to do, just like last time, is move the pi out front, and then we have pi times r, and then eliminate the multiplication sign, so the answer is pi r, which means pi times r. So r times pi is equal to pi r. Alright, one a little bit more advanced. A times what is equal to 5/3 a? Well, this is a variable, right? And this is a variable, but this is a constant. So what we want to do is actually move this over here, even though we don't know what it is, but kind of hinting that it's a constant, since this is a constant, right? So let's go ahead and move that out front, or what we think is the constant out front. And then we're going to, after we move it out front, we're going to remove the multiplication sign. And once we do that, it's very clear that this number must be that, because these two are a, right? It has to look exactly the same on the left and right once we simplify it. So therefore it must be 5/3, right, to make these two equal. And therefore the answer to our original question is none other than 5/3. In other words, a times 5/3 is equal to 5/3 times a. And of course this one is simplified and this one over here is not. Okay. What number times 7 gives you 7p? And this is a lot like the last one, right? Except we know this is a constant, so we can go ahead and move it out front. And let's do that. So let's go ahead and move it out front. And that looked weird. Okay, let's try that. So 7 times what gives you 7p? So now for the second step, we're going to remove the multiplication sign. And now we can clearly see, it's hard to see, okay. Now we can clearly see 7 times what gives you 7p? Very obvious, right? It's got to be p. These two have to be the same. So therefore the answer to our question is p. So sometimes the box ends up in a different location, but nevertheless, that's what we found to be inside the box. So therefore that is the answer, p. Okay, again, we sometimes we want to treat e and pi like a variable when necessary. So if we have e first and the negative 3.8, which we call a normal number, what do we need to do? We need to treat this like a variable and treat this like the constant that it is and move it out front. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to move the constants out front, even though, so negative 3.8 comes first, even though we talked about the fact that e is a constant, we treat it like a variable. Because e can't be, here's the thing, you can't use it like a normal digit, right? You can't write 3, okay, so 30 means 30, right? And 31 means 31, but 3e is a whole different thing, right? That means 3 times e. So that's why you treat it like a variable. So anyway, let me go ahead and erase that so you don't get confused. So once we put it out front, then we can move the multiplication sign, or remove it, and the final answer is negative 3.8e. So e times negative 3.8 is the same as negative 3.8e, and that's going to be our answer. One more, pi times 9. Now which one of these is variable? Neither, right? But which one do we treat like a variable? We treat pi like a variable. We treat the normal numbers, we give them priority and put them in front because it looks better, I think. I mean, if we wrote just pi 9 and remove the multiplication sign, that just doesn't look right to me. And I don't know about you, but we want to take the normal number and put it out front. So that's what we're going to do. We'll put the 9 out front and then remove the multiplication sign, and we end up with 9 pi, and therefore the final answer is 9 pi. Pi times 9 is the same as 9 pi. And that's it. When you have a variable times a constant, or a number you treat like a variable, like an e or pi, you want to move the normal number, like 7 or negative 5 or 200 or 5/7 to the front, and put the variable or the e or the pi second, and then remove the multiplication sign. Make it simpler that way.